Hi everyone! Welcome back to today's Donkey Storytime. I know today we have Milo and Ollie back with us, and we are back with Ralph and finding out more about his adventures as he heads off on the bus with Ryan off to his new school. We had heard that their school is called the Irwin J. Sneed Elementary School. And although Ryan has some really great ideas about Irwin J. Sneed and who he could be and being back in the time of the gold rush, in fact, it wasn't nearly as exciting. But hopefully Ralph's time at school will be even more exciting. Maybe not as exciting as toothpaste, but exciting nonetheless. Well, let's dive on into Chapter 3, which is titled Irwin J. Sneed Elementary School. It has a name almost as long as our school. As Ryan hopped down the steps of the school bus, Ralph poked his nose out of his pocket and found himself in a crowd of children, all of them bundled up in hooded parkas or jackets and knit caps. Clouds of vapor came from their mouths as they shouted back and forth to one another. A tiny cloud formed in front of Ralph's nose, too. A boy jumped out of a yellow tow truck and shouted, "So long, Dad!" Then, as the truck pulled away, he added, "So long, Arfie!" Must be his dog, right? To the dog sitting next to the driver. "Arf," answered the dog, who looked kind of like a wolf. That boy must be Brad, thought Ralph, as the children trampled snow on the playground on their way into the long one-story building that was the Irwin J. Sneed Elementary School. Inside the building, the linoleum-floored hall, unlike the halls at the Mountain View Inn, was a broad, smooth highway with no rough carpets to wear down the already thin tires of a little motorcycle. Ralph wondered how he could endure a whole day of waiting for night to come so he could race down that long hall. There would be no furniture to get in his way and no little relatives to make him feel guilty for not sharing his motorcycle. That hall was the perfect race course Ralph had dreamed about ever since he had owned a motorcycle. When no one around could see him take any spills, he could even rear back on one wheel to practice his wheelies, too. Quite the daredevil. Ryan entered room 5, a room different from any room Ralph had ever seen. Unlike the rooms at the inn, this one was furnished with many chairs and tables instead of beds. At the front, seated at a desk, was a woman Ralph knew must be Miss Kay. Her toothpaste was nowhere in sight, though. You'll remember, Ralph has quite a fear of toothpaste now. At the rear of the room, Ryan hung his backpack on a hook. Then he removed his jacket and hung it on the hook, too. "Hey, don't leave me in here all by myself," squeaked Ralph, alarmed at being alone in such a strange new place. "Take me with you." "Promise you'll stay out of sight?" whispered Ryan out of the corner of his mouth. "Sure," agreed Ralph. Ryan started to poke Ralph into the pocket of his jeans until Ralph objected. "Hey, not in there! That place is too tight! You'll squash me when you sit down." "Sorry," said Ryan, as he dropped Ralph into the pocket of his plaid flannel shirt. No sooner had Ryan sat down at the table than he and the rest of room 5 stood back up again to recite some words about a flag and something about liberty and justice for all. We know what that is. Of course, the Pledge of Allegiance, Milo. Whatever it was, Ralph hoped that mice were included in the liberty and justice for all, too. Ryan sat down and began to shuffle books and papers while Miss Kay talked about numbers. Ralph tried to listen above the steady lub-dub of Ryan's heart, but he soon grew bored. Ryan's shirt was new and the flannel was still fuzzy. Ralph nipped a hole in the front of the pocket for a better view, and then, lulled by the muffled lub-dub and the steady rise and fall of Ryan's chest, he fell asleep as if he were being rocked in a cradle. Because a heart does not strike the hours like a clock, Ralph then slept until recess, and again until lunchtime when Ryan remembered to slip a bit of sandwich into his pocket for lunch. Sometime in the afternoon, Ralph awoke feeling hot, cramped, and restless. Maybe no one would notice if a small little mouse poked his nose out for a breath of fresh air. After a few whiffs, Ralph stuck his head out all the way to see what was going on. All heads, except for one, were bent over their papers and looking down at their tables. One girl was chewing her pencil and staring into space. "That's funny," thought Ralph. "I didn't know people gnawed things, too." Unexpectedly, the girl turned her head and looked straight at Ralph. Then she tapped another girl on the shoulder and pointed. Too late. Ralph dug back into the pocket. He heard the girls whispering, and soon others were whispering too. Uh-oh, thought Ralph, feeling both guilty and doomed. He had broken his promise to stay out of sight. He was in trouble. Miss Kay spoke. Melissa, is there something disturbing you? She asked. Melissa, thought Ralph. So that's the girl whose boot I'm supposed to live in. Not exactly, Miss Kay, answered Melissa. There seems to be something going on that I don't know about, persisted Miss Kay. Won't someone let me in on it? I thought I saw something move in Ryan's pocket, admitted Melissa. Ryan, do you have something you wish to share with the class? Asked Miss Kay. Ralph squeezed himself into a corner of the pocket as Ryan's heart began to beat faster, or rev up, Ralph thought of it. No, not exactly, Ryan told his teacher. The class began to speak. Yes, he does. He does too. I saw something and it moved. Ralph dug his claws into the flannel shirt as Miss Kay said, Ryan, why don't you come to the front of the room and let us see what it is? Ralph started to chew through the side of the pocket closest to the heartbeat. As Ryan walked to the front of the room, he reached into his pocket, grasped Ralph by the tail, and dragged him clawing and struggling out of the pocket. Ralph was so angry at this treatment that he was squeakless. Not speechless, but squeakless. He's a mouse, of course. Right, Milo? When Ryan set him down on the palm of his hand, he turned his back to the class and sat quivering with rage and terror. What a beautiful mouse, said Miss Kay, who was young and enthusiastic and eager to give her pupils some great learning experiences. Class, gather around for a better look. I'm beautiful, thought Ralph. No adult or child, for that matter, had ever described him as beautiful. Far from it. Look at his perfect little paws, said Miss Kay. Ralph looked too, as the class left their seats to crowd around. His paws looked like ordinary mouse paws to him, but now that she mentioned it, maybe. And his lovely little ears, continued Miss Kay. Aw, breathed the children. He's cute. He's really neat. He's darling. Well, what do you know? Ralph perked up and stopped quaking. Shyly, he turned his face to the class. One member of room 5, however, did not admire Ralph. He's just your standard brown mouse, said Brad. There are plenty more like him. Where did you get your mouse, Ryan? Asked Miss Kay. At the hotel where I live, explained Ryan. He's a very smart mouse. His name is Ralph. Boys, no fighting about hay. Everybody has some? Here, you have to share a little with Milo. Now Ollie's trying to steal Milo's hay. Okay. Crisis averted. I think we're okay. Let's see about the whole Ryan and Brad thing, though. At the hotel where I lived, explained Ryan, he's a very smart mouse. His name is Ralph. What is his last name? Someone asked. Mouse, answered Ryan. His name is Ralph S. Mouse, just like the title. His name is Ralph S. Mouse, and the S stands for smart. May I hold Ralph? Asked Miss Kay, and Ralph found himself being transferred to a softer, cleaner hand. He sat up and began to groom his whiskers, always a good performance. He could see that Ryan was happy to be receiving so much attention from his classmates. Aww, breathed the class again. Look at him. He washes like a little kitty cat. Such a tiny little scrap of life, said Miss Kay. He's a little miracle. Ralph stopped wiping his paws over his whiskers to look with love at Ryan's teacher. Her long, shiny hair fell over her shoulders. It looked so strong that Ralph was sure that one of her hairs would be perfect for tying those exhaust pipes into place. Only a mouse would think about hair like that. Perhaps the custodian has a cage we could keep him in, said Miss Kay. Love turned to distrust. This wonderful woman with the useful hair was turning out to be like any other grown-up. Ryan spoke up. I don't think that Ralph would be happy in a cage, he told his teacher. I'll just keep him in my pocket if that's all right with you. Good old Ryan. Miss Kay gently handed Ralph back to Ryan, who stuffed him into his shirt pocket again. "Thank you for sharing, Ralph," she said, above the lub-dub of Ryan's heart, now steady as a well-oiled machine. "Class, how would you like to draw pictures and write stories and poems about mice? Friday afternoon, we could have a mouse exhibit to show off our work. Ryan, you could bring Ralph to school again so he could be our guest of honor." Miss Kay, who had no idea Ralph was planning to live at school, was a teacher who could turn anything into a project. I love it. Most of the class was enthusiastic. Others thought mice were as good a subject as any for drawing and writing. A boy named Gordon said he didn't like to do any of those things. Miss Kay suggested that he could go to the library to look up facts about mice and write an essay about them. "And what do you want to do, Ryan?" she asked. "I would like to tell how smart Ralph is." Ryan's answer threw Ralph into a fright. What was Ryan going to tell his classmates? Was he going to tell them about the motorcycle? Ralph would not ride his precious motorcycle in front of everyone. "Splendid, Ryan," said Miss Kay. "But why not show us how smart he is? Do you know what a maze is?" "Sort of," said Ryan. "I've seen them on the kids' page of the Sunday paper. You take a pencil and you try to draw a line through the open spaces of the diagram from one side to the other. It isn't easy because there's usually a lot of dead ends." "That's right," said Miss Kay, who was drawing a maze on the blackboard as Ryan spoke. "Scientists use mazes with walls to test the speed with which mice learn. They start a mouse at one end and time him to see how fast he reaches the food at the other end. Then they have him do it again. If he cuts down his time and does it faster, they know he learned from the experience." Oh, good tips for those of you that I know want to be scientists someday. "Do you think you could build a maze?" "I'd like to try," Ryan answered. "Good," said Miss Kay. "I'll bring a stopwatch for timing Ralph's race through the maze. I can bring my cat pistol for a starter's gun." Must be kind of like one of those potato guns that shoots just a little bit of something into the air. Hopefully not like a real gun going to school. Volunteered Brad, showing interest for the first time. "Good idea," said Miss Kay. "You like to build things, so perhaps you could help Ryan build his maze." The boys eyed one another as if they were not sure how a partnership would work out. Together? Okay, agreed Brad. So it happened that Ralph was not only a learning experience for Room 5, he was to have a learning experience of his own. He was not sure he liked the idea, especially the part about the starter's gun, whatever that was, to get them started. Must be like at a race, kind of like almost like a water gun or something that makes a loud sound. What if he couldn't run through the maze faster the second time? What if he couldn't find the food the first time? What if he turned out to not be smart at all? Of course I'm smart, thought Ralph as he tried to make himself comfortable in Ryan's pocket once more. I can ride a motorcycle, can't I? And he began to have his doubts again, and doubt turned to anger. His intelligence was nobody's business but his own. When the last bell rang and Ryan went to the back of the room to collect his jacket, Ralph poked his nose out of the shirt's pocket. I'm not going to do it, he squeaked to Ryan. I'm not going to run any maze just because you say so. Sure you are, said Ryan, out of the corner of his mouth so no one would notice he was talking to Ralph. I'm new in this school and nobody has paid any attention to me until I pulled you out of my pocket. You have to run the maze. Ralph became stubborn. No, I don't, he contradicted, and you can't make me. Ryan ignored this remark. Do you want to change your mind about staying here at school? You can always come back to the inn with me. I'll stay here, answered Ralph, thinking of that long, smooth hall waiting for his motorcycle. I can't let Matt lose his job. Ryan looked around to make sure no one was watching before lifting Ralph out of his pocket and placing him in an overturned boot. So long, see you tomorrow, he said. Who are you talking to? A boy asked. Me? Ryan was all innocent. Nobody. I'm just practicing to be a ventriloquist. I'm working up an act. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar, a ventriloquist is someone that usually has a puppet that they hold on their hand, and they make their sounds from their mouth go over to the puppet. Some act, remarks the boy. Ryan held up one hand and waggled his fingers as if he were working a puppet's mouth. What did one dandelion say to the other dandelion? He asked in a squeaky voice without moving his lips. I don't know, he said in a normal voice. Then he answered in a squeaky voice, take me to your weeder. Get it? A weeder. A weed, like a dandelion. It's a good one. Keep that in mind. Remember that one. All this nonsense made Ralph frantic. "Hey, give me my motorcycle," he ordered as soon as the other boy had gone. Ryan tried to speak without moving his lips, not his nose. "And have you riding all over school? Not a chance. You'd get lost or get into trouble or someone would see you." "It's my motorcycle," squeaked Ralph at the top of his lungs. "You give it to me, now." Ryan was the last to leave the room. "We'll see about that," he said as he bent over to speak to Ralph. "After you run the maze on Friday." With that ultimatum, he has no choice. Run the maze, get his motorcycle back, or don't run the maze and no motorcycle. With that ultimatum, he snatched his backpack off the hook and hurried away to catch the bus that would take him back up the mountain to the hotel. Ralph was so angry that he sank his teeth right into Melissa's boot. Ugh! It had a nasty taste. Half rubber, half dust. How long has it been since you wore those? And he had thought Ryan was his friend. Not anymore. He was mean. He wasn't fair. Ralph felt terrible, but he was not going to run that maze in front of everyone in room 5. Ryan couldn't make him. Maybe he would even hide and refuse to be the guest of honor. Ryan would learn not to try to order him around then. Ralph sat in Melissa's boot and sulked. He was so mad, Ollie. Ralph sat in Melissa's boot and sulked. Without his motorcycle, he felt mad at the whole world. Of course he was a smart mouse. Why should he have to prove it? Ralph felt as if nothing was fair and nobody loved him. Oh, poor little mouse. We'll leave up there with chapter 4. You see what it's called, Ollie? It's called Life at School. We'll see how life is going at school for Ralph. For our remote learning school friends, I will be leaving you off there, and I'll just remind you to keep up the great work in our Google Classroom. Don't forget Friday is the day to turn in your choice board, so if you haven't done that already. Ollie, are you getting ready to do that too? Yeah, don't forget Friday is choice board turning in day, so don't forget to turn in your choice boards and to also share some writing with me this week and share your favorite part of a book you've been reading. Those are our 2 must-dos for the week, a little writing and a little reading share too. Let me know if you need any help with that, friends. Keep up the great work. Don't forget to look for moments where you can show caring and kindness to those around you and to yourself during this time too. I will see you all very soon, and keep up the great work in the meantime. Bye, guys. Did you say bye?